These are some of the faces of Bangladesh's 4 million garment workers. From the porters plying their trade on the banks of the Buriganga River, to the young men toiling away in its dank sweatshops, and the women working the sewing lines in the Savar flatland. They all rely on the booming apparel industry. Until recently, Bangladesh's labour force was a mostly silent link in the supply chain of affordable fashion sold by retailers to millions of consumers in the US and Europe. But after a series of horrific factory accidents, most recently the Rana Plaza collapse that killed more than 1,100 people, government and industry have been scrambling to clean up a $24 billion rag trade, stained by an appalling health and safety record, child labour and absence of unions. The stakes are high. Bangladesh's garment industry accounts for 80% of exports and is a bright spot in an otherwise poor and densely populated country of 160 million. A looming election and the possibility of political unrest hang heavy in the air. In the wake of the Rana tragedy, Bangladesh is being scrutinised on how it reforms its labour laws. Foreign NGOs and politicians have called for greater worker representation.
I think there remain some serious issues that need to be looked at to make sure that workers really can select someone and talk things over and work out working conditions. Because when we talk to those at Rana who came to meet with us, they said that if they had been represented, if they had had a representative in that plant, they never would have gone in.
In a largely symbolic move, in June the US removed Bangladesh from its GSP program, a system that grants preferential access to its markets. Yet despite the Rana tragedy, exports of garments rose 26% year-on-year in July, and today Bangladesh is hot behind the heels of China for cheap fashion. Labour activism is a contentious and at times dangerous job in a country that relies on a non-unionised labour force working a minimum wage of $37 per month. Just last year, the mysterious disappearance and subsequent death of Aminul Islam, a worker organiser, cast a sinister spotlight on the country's labour activism. Kalpuna Akhtar is a former factory worker turned activist who worked closely with Mr. Islam.
Government should be more concerned about this case, okay, because they should not take this lightly. The whole world is looking at this, okay. Bangladesh is, in a focus light in these years, okay. So there should be justice should be for Aminul case. There is no improvement of his case yet. Nobody being arrested in this time.
With a reputation of global brands at stake, retailers in Europe and the US have proposed 2 different plans to prevent more factory accidents and respond to public outcry. The non-legally binding US alliance, with 17 large brands including Walmart, Gap and Target in its ranks, does not allow for worker representatives to sit on its governing board, while the legally binding European Accord, with more than 70 brands including H&M and Tesco and Zara, grants equal representation to factory workers and owners. While most agree on the need to reform an industry widely accepted to have grown out of control, some factory owners question the commitment of buyers to absorb the costs of upgrading factories and pay increases, bound to boost manufacturing costs.
Customers are putting up money for this accord, but they're not helping us in any way. They're not increasing the price which they are paying us for the garments that we are producing for them. So there's very little commitment from the customer side. That is what makes vendors in Bangladesh very desperate, and that starts the price war.
Fierce competition to win orders has made some factory owners willing to cut corners in health and safety and subcontract work to smaller, less regulated factories. In just 2 decades, the Made in Bangladesh label has become almost as ubiquitous as the Made in China when it comes to fast fashion. Low wages and a largely silent workforce have propelled Bangladesh well ahead of its South Asian rivals in making the cheapest clothes in the world. But now, the need for reform has never been greater if the country is to fulfill its true potential. Ben Marino, Financial Times, Dhaka.